Sometimes in life, love is all it takes to do the extraordinary, and frequently, love without money is bound to end in the trash bin. Alex is a young guy trying to balance his financial life and relationship. After a very hot argument that didn't settle well with his self-esteem, he decides to work off-limit for the lady he loves. "If you are not man enough, I will walk out of this relationship," were the constant words of his girlfriend. The statement keeps ringing in his head as he walks through to Mr. Joe's store in an attempt to beg him for a position in his store. After what seems to be a long thought by Mr. Joe, he finally decides to find him a space. Work started fine, and Alex could not ask for more. He was grateful to Mr. Joe for his kind gestures because, since he started making some cash for himself, his girlfriend has stopped nagging about his lack of taking up responsibilities. He doubts that his girlfriend might not be loyal to him in the relationship, but that was just by the way. His heart has chosen this lady and would continue to beat for her. He assured me to continue to do everything possible to see their work and invest in their growth. They have been together for 3 years. On a fateful day, while he was walking down to his house after a stressful day at work, the uproar of some group of bad boys who were trying to raid Mr. Joe's store stole his attention. Alex, who has attempted severally to get into the military force on multiple trials, decided to stress out his little military skills on these guys. Fortunately, he was able to save Mr. Joe's goods and even nabbed 2 of the burglars, and they were handed to the police for further investigation. Mr. Joe was surprised at Alex's braveness and admired his patriotism towards him and his possessions. Following his satisfaction towards Alex, Mr. Joe promoted him from just a worker in his store to his right-hand man, his little way of rewarding him for his loyalty. He started to favor Alex. He took him everywhere and showed him the depth of his business. Anyone could easily mistake Alex for Mr. Joe's son. After a few months, Alex's relationship begins to flourish unexpectedly. True is the saying that love is sweet, but becomes sweeter when money is involved. He starts to buy stuff for his girlfriend and pays most of her bills. Everything seems normal in their lives and in Mr. Joe's store, too. Everyone is happy. All staff now accord Alex the same respect they regard Mr. Joe. Alex was seen knocking on Mr. Joe's office door. A voice from the office asked that he comes in. He entered Mr. Joe's office. The office was massive, with many noble awards hanging on the shelf directly across Mr. Joe's office seat. That was Alex's first time in his office. According to the workers, Alex was the first staff who entered Mr. Joe's office, as he only hosts some suited men who come only once in 3 months for meetings. Alex imagines his boss as a god in human form. He is mild and always seen smiling and filled with top-notch business ideas to keep his store the best in the city. Alex has come to see Mr. Joe for something important. He wants to plead with him to show him the strategic ways he has threaded to attain this high level so he can build a castle next to his bosses. He firmly believes this will work since he loves him like his son, and he's able to gain his trust over the months. Alex was surprised when Mr. Joe told him he's always been thinking about him lately. He's been planning to involve Alex in his deals. "If you decide to work for me, I will be happier because I've seen you as part of my plan. However, if you don't, perhaps that might be the end of our deals and works together," Mr. Joe said to Alex. The statement makes Alex so curious. He promises to do whatever it is, as it is a great privilege for him to learn from a business tycoon like Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe was impressed by Alex's response and determination to change his life. Mr. Joe reveals the unbelievable to Alex. He opens up to him that he is a drug dealer and has been able to amass all his wealth from the money he has made with this shady business, and he will help Alex achieve the same if he is ready to work with him. He will be willing to let Alex work with him so he can put his military experience into work and get paid hugely for every successful mission. Alex is surprised by the discovery, making him disappointed as he turns to walk out on Mr. Joe in anger. How can someone I look up to and call a mentor be this shady? He kept thinking. He went home and could not sleep. The thought of disappointment filled his heart, and he was really down that he failed to go to work for 2 days and also failed to eat anything. As a result of the disappointment, his girlfriend began to notice this in no time. She said, "Alex, I hope you have not left the work as you always do, you loser. I will walk out of your life if you resume being miserable. I'm still staying because you've been making some cash lately." She stormed out of the house. Alex was then left with the thought of his relationship going down because of his lack of decision. He will live up to expectations if he takes the deal, was his final thought as he pulls out a new pair of clothes and walks toward the direction of work. After minutes of contemplating going into Mr. Joe's office, he enters the office. Mr. Joe is more than excited to see Alex and even offered drinks. They marry while the staff is left wondering what they might be celebrating. Later that day, Mr. Joe analyzes the scope of the business and gives Alex his first mission. Alex took it up from there and went to the meeting point to deliver the work in a grand style, leaving no traces. Everything seems perfectly planned out. Mr. Joe was more impressed with the outcome of what appears to be his best mission so far. This raises the beginning of another dimension in the life of the youngster. Within a few weeks, Alex got his first car, but still decided to lay a low profile as instructed by Mr. Joe, his strong backbone. Mr. Joe has executed many people in the line of business for the growth of his own business on the call and order from the giant monster himself. Mr. Joe has created fear in him that he knows better than to try anything funny with the new beast he discovered in Mr. Joe. The penalty is death, as many have fallen in such accord. Anything for my baby gave Alex the motivation to do more, and he did not stop to shower her with gifts and money, which she still always requests as she has become even more extravagant in her spending, something he never checkmated in the course of the relationship due to the fear of losing a lovely lady. Alex embarked on a deadly mission that might end his life, but he could not complain because he had seen what the monster himself had done to people that failed to carry out his orders. And to fight the monster, you must train yourself to be a monster. Joe was tired of the life he was forced to take out of his love for his girlfriend. He decided he was going to end his connection with Mr. Joe and would live a free man life again. After a series of thoughts and imagination, he found a fantastic way to betray Mr. Joe. He outsmarted Mr. Joe, and the monster was killed in the deal, all thanks to Alex. The question about life is always, what next? He decided to put the money he got into good use for himself, reducing everything for his girlfriend, who was of very high taste. "You piece of shit, you are so dumb, and you can never be enough for me," were her words as Alex stopped caring about her luxurious lifestyle to focus on his dreams. He stood his ground. The girlfriend slapped him for refusing to give her what she asked him. She broke up with him and threatened that he would run back to her in no time. When we work with determination, we tend to achieve the unbelievable. Alex began to pick his life from scratch and tried so hard to be a better person. Good things don't come by easily, he thought. He started a coffee shop and he employed a few professionals to work for him. He has met his girlfriend several times and wished he had her back due to his love for her. He began to wonder if he would ever find a worthy replacement. He blamed himself for pushing too hard to impress a lady that was a gold digger and promised himself the following relationship was going to be better. Days became weeks, and weeks became months. He is so much into his work that he hardly has time for himself or any woman. On a fateful evening, after a stressful day at work, he decides to take a walk around the street to his apartment. He saw a group of boys trying to harass and molest a cute young girl with blonde hair and a fantastic body. He ran in the direction and engaged the boys in a fight. He overpowered them, but he sustained some heavy blows on his cheeks. The poor girl locks eyes with Alex, smiles, and thanks him with an intent expression. Alex was dumbfounded by her soft voice. She is indeed a cute creature. He couldn't say a word. He vowed to himself that he would not search for or think about her. He doesn't want to fall victim to a gold digger again. It didn't take long for Alex to reverse his decision to search for her. After so many attempts to meet her, Alex finally got to see her again. They had a long, pleasant conversation and exchanged contact with a smile. One would wonder if they won a lottery. The young lady worked in a restaurant nearby and was doing fine for herself. Her personality and approach to matters were not unnoticed by Alex, who could not help but like her repeatedly. The two became so close that one would mistake them for a couple. Finally, he asked her out, and they started a relationship. She is respectful and also playful, a different version of his ex-girlfriend. They both work hand in hand for their future right before them. He was in his office on a fateful afternoon when he heard a knock, and to his surprise, his ex-girlfriend was seen standing in front of him, looking different, quite unkempt, and looking like a beast beat her. She explains her situation to him and begs him to take her back, but he cannot help but burst into laughter as he recounts what she made him go through. She sincerely apologized, and Alex forgave her. He gave her money and told her about his wedding coming up soon, though he had no plan for a wedding at that moment. That was his way of making her understand that he had moved on. She reluctantly collected the money to start up a new life. Even though he was over her, he could not help but pity her because of the troubles she had faced, especially how she was treated like a sex slave by the man she left him for. There was no doubt she might be affected by diseases, one that might equally end her life. The rest of the day went well, as he anticipated the nightfall when he would ask his girlfriend to marry him and become the mother to his unborn children. It went as planned, and even heaven knows he is lucky to finally find someone deserving and lovable despite his imperfections. He learns a lesson that he doesn't have to work off limit for anybody to satisfy the person or make the person stay. As a fact, love should not be based on money only. I'm glad she ended things with me. She made me find the best woman ever. He smiled as he wrapped his arms around his new girl. He pecked her on the forehead while she blushed and smiled.
It was an early Monday morning, and it's going to be a long day at work because last Friday, I called in sick because I was recovering from the hangover I had on Thursday night, after my friends forced me to a club to celebrate one of ours, who just got promoted at work. I had so much to drink, even though I was supposed to take just a little, because my tolerance for alcohol was low. Hence, the hangover was inevitable. I lost myself while dancing, and as far as I remember, I danced like no one was watching, even though I could be timid on a typical day. I'm an ambivert, so blending into the social part of me wasn't so tricky anyways. Besides, I was drunk, and you know what alcohol does. It brings out the crazy amount of you with some confidence. Some guys shot their shots at the club, but I never gave them attention, as I assumed them to be time wasters, especially white guys. I had learned the hard way from my ordeal with my ex-boyfriend, who was a redneck. He'd generally given me a wrong impression about white guys. A story for another day. While I turned all of these guys down, a particular black dude got me hands down. I didn't know what he did to me, but I must confess, it got me real good. I didn't hesitate when he offered to buy me a drink, and even invited me to dance with him, even though I had turned down tons of guys that had come earlier. The last thing I remember at the club was dancing with him, and the next thing was finding myself in my bed after a call from my office woke me on Friday morning. I had even missed previous calls while sleeping. I probably might have dozed off after dancing with the guy while my friends brought me home. I'm a young black woman in her late 20s with a good-paying job. I often get the "you are so lucky" line, but I waved it off as I don't regard it as a compliment, as I don't believe in luck, but rather hard work. My hard work has got me to where I am today, because I work extraordinarily to earn extravagantly. I'm a beautiful damsel because the mirror doesn't lie. My friends often compliment me, while I giggle and blush softly, trying not to make it obvious, you know, the big girl thing. On a more serious note, I need no one's approval to accept that I'm beautiful. My philosophy about beauty is that every human, black or white, is gorgeous, as we are all fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm ready for today and all the stress that comes with it since I skipped Friday, and Monday is a naturally busy day. Deep down I pitied myself, but shrugged my shoulders after remembering I am blessed with the best colleague at work. My colleague is named Mark. He's a sweet guy. He helps out with everything. He always makes work easy for me, justifying his kind gestures with a particular statement: "You're an angel, and you deserve zero stress. I'll help you out." I can't help but blush whenever he utters this line, as the line never gets old. A noticeable blush this time as the big girl in me vanishes, and I often react with a smile and a soft tone. "Thank you." As I got to work, I noticed Mark wasn't in his seat, and that was so unlike him, as he gets to work before anyone does. So I asked the secretary why Mark wasn't in the office yet. Then she gave me the shocker of my life. Did you guess what she said? Possibly you thought right. The secretary informed me that Mark has been sick and won't be coming today, as he was even absent on Friday, as was I. This isn't good, I muttered. I said further that a good guy like Mark doesn't deserve to fall sick. Just then it crossed my mind why he didn't call me on Friday morning, as I didn't show up early, because he gives me the first call each time I stay late, before the secretary calls. But he didn't even call throughout the weekend. It was unusual, and I should have sensed that before now. I felt terrible. I didn't call the poor guy, but I was going to make it up to him by stopping by his apartment after work to check on him and drop off some provisions. I knew I was in deep shit at that moment. I received the information about Mark from the secretary. I'd have to cover for all of the work myself, and at least cover some of Mark's, because he would do the same if I were in his shoes. I've got some brief board meetings to attend and some proposals to submit to the boss. I immediately started the work. I still had some other tasks. I will reach the nearby mall to get stuff done after work hours, drop by Mark's apartment, prepare dinner when I get home, and then prepare for the next day. As a senior staff member, I close at 4 p.m., but I have stayed till 5 p.m. already, and I need to start packing up to attend other things I scheduled for the day before night comes. I will cover the rest tomorrow since I listened to the urgent and important ones already, I said to myself as I dashed out of the office. I divided my tasks as I set a proposed timetable to make them attainable and more accessible for me. I drove to the mall down the road and finished shopping even before the time I had set. At least I'd have more time to myself. The next was to visit Mark. I immediately started my car engine. It gave a weird sound, but I didn't even mind. I zoomed off. Did I mention Mark's house was far from the office? How he managed to get to work before any of us every day is what amazes me. He's a workaholic. I was on a highway and I was driving so fast. If you saw my pace, two things would likely cross your mind. I had just joined Dominic Toronto and his colleagues for another Fast and Furious race, or I was driving for Professor in another money heist mission. The experience, however, didn't end well. Just while I was enjoying my whole Fast and Furious ride, one of my car tires blew out of its spot while the car was still in motion. I was scared that it didn't even know when I matched the brake. My steering had stiffed, and the car's screeching sound as it reached to the brake got me scarier, but thankfully it stopped. I believe God loves me because I might have lost my life to that accident, but I came out without a scratch. I get out from the car as I was trying to imagine what would have happened if the vehicle had refused to stop. I was grateful to God. I immediately ran to grab my phone in the car to call my mechanic, but it was off already. I left my charger home and didn't even have a car charger. It became apparent that I was stranded as I didn't know what to do next. It was a deserted highway with just a few passing cars. I tried waving down for some vehicles in motion to signal for aid, but none waited. I got tired and frustrated, as no one was ready to help, possibly because it was a dry area and it was getting cloudy already. But all I needed is a damn phone to call an Uber, I grumbled. I was worn out and felt like crying, as little things drove me teary. How do I manage the timetable I had set? I said to myself as I kicked the car in anger. It was painful, but I didn't mind. After a few minutes, a Ford 150 drove past me, but pulled over after a few seconds, just around where my car stopped. I saw a redneck guy come down from the vehicle, approaching the direction where my car stopped. I looked away as I didn't expect anything good to come from a redneck guy, and had promised not to have anything to do with rednecks. I needed his help, but my ego was more important than whatever favor I thought within myself. The next thing I heard was a baritone voice asking if there was a problem. I immediately answered him, claiming everything was fine, but he insisted that a young lady wouldn't just decide to stay on the highway if everything was fine. I yelled at him to let me be, but he insisted he only came to help. For a second, I thought it would be nice to trash the ego as I needed help. He was about to take his leave, since I wasn't ready to give him an audience like the gentle guy I suppose he was. Swiftly, I asked him to wait as I moved towards him reluctantly. I explained how my tire suddenly blew out, and it's awful as I have a lot to do within a short period, and I'm running out of time already. He didn't utter a word as he moved around my vehicle, checking if any other part of my vehicle had developed a fault. Still, I guess it was just the tire, as I had to take it to the workshop for a monthly mechanical checkup, and my mechanic would have hinted to me if he had detected anything. Not long after, he made a call to someone, and all I could hear was, "Yeah, I'll text you the address right away. Thank you," and he dropped the call. That must have been his mechanic. I was lost while standing because I would have doubted if anyone had told me earlier that a redneck would be saving my ass this evening. He was typing on his phone while I tried to process the unbelievable. I supposed he was texting the mechanic. When he finished, he asked where I was going. I told him I was headed to a colleague's place before my car tire blew out. He offered to drive me down, but I rejected him. As I shouldn't stress further, he insisted, so I hopped in his car. While in the car, he asked if I had the means to get home once I left my colleagues, or if I'd be staying over at his place. I told him I was only going to check on him as he was sick, and as well deliver the stuff I had got him, and won't be staying long as it's already getting late, and I have to prepare for work tomorrow. I told him I was only going to check on him as he was sick, and as well deliver the stuff I got him, and I won't be staying long, as it's getting late already and I have to prepare for work tomorrow, but told him I'd sort myself and thanked him. Then he said if that's the case, he will wait to take me home since he's free. Trust me, I insisted it won't be necessary, but he was obstinate. It didn't seem like he was ready to succumb, so I gave in instead. We got to Mark's apartment and I met him in the living room. I sharply asked that he forgives me for not calling or checking on him, during the time as I didn't know he was sick. I told him about what I encountered on my way to his place and explained how God had sent one redneck guy to my aid. I told him he was outside and needed to start going, so I didn't delay the new guy further. Mark thanked me for the stuff I got him and assured me he would resume the following day. I dashed out and made my way to where the guy parked. He drove to a restaurant and got me a takeaway meal while I stayed in the car. He said I must be famished and exhausted to cook when I get home. He later drove to my house as I directed him at every junction. He possibly hadn't been to my area before. He looked too expensive for my hood, even though my hood isn't rotten anyways. He dropped me at my entrance. I was surprised, although the moment we were in the car, he didn't even ask for my name or phone number, at least as compensation for the favor he rendered. I thanked him profusely, as I was amused at such a kind gesture. I asked if he would come in for a drink, but he refused, as he said he had to catch up with friends at the bar because it was around 8 p.m. already. When he was about to go, he told me my car was safe as it had been towed to his mechanic's workshop, who gave him the update when I was still with Mark. I was ecstatic. I was about to ask how to locate the mechanic, but he cut in before I could ask for the time I resumed work daily. I didn't hesitate to reply, at 8 a.m. Although I didn't know why he asked, then he informed me he had already sorted my car expenses, which would be delivered to my compound before I leave for my office tomorrow, as he would text the mechanic my home address, and he zoomed off. I stood as I watched his car disappear into thin air. I didn't doubt his kindness for a second, as it was just too accurate and undiluted. I was assured he would keep to his promise, so I slept like a baby with no worries. I was not wrong. The redneck guy kept his word. The mechanic's honk on my gate woke me the following day, as he delivered my car with a new set of tires. Just one tire blew out, but I guess the redneck must have paid for 4 replacements. I was astonished, more dumbfounded, but I tried to package up so the mechanic didn't see the expression on my face. When I asked the mechanic for his number, he told me he had already given him a stern warning not to release it, as he thought I might want to thank him. However, he sent a short note in a paper which reads thus: I pulled over yesterday because you're a beautiful black woman who doesn't deserve to be in distress. And it was an honor I was able to help in my little way. That day, the redneck guy changed my perceptions about white guys. He taught me most nicely and quickly that not all rednecks are racists. On that note, I understood the fact that kindness is more about personality and less about color. Applying the standard sentence, born from a humble background, is an understatement in the case of Toby, as he grew up from the specks of dirt in the gutter. The latter sentence describes better the kind of rough childhood he had. Toby, unlike other kids, wore the adulthood mantle at his tender age, as he was more empathetic and intelligent than brilliant. Although his parents were stinking poor, many times he had to skip classes to survive, as he engaged in a loud number of menial jobs. Often, these job sessions clashed with school hours, leaving him no choice but to skip school activities, since the school wasn't paying him, but rather taking from the little he was making, as there was always a new book or reading materials to buy. Toby is the first male and the third child with 2 younger siblings who are boys. In other words, he is the third among 5 children of his parents and the first son. Do you know what this formation implies? He has to commit more as the first son because he has a great responsibility on his shoulders. He might have decided to care less since he was just a teenager. Still, due to Toby's personality, he sees himself as more than his age, as he believes his position in his family makes him the second man after his father. Hence, he's saddled with the duty of providing for their basic needs, just like his father. He feels terrible when his elder sisters and younger brothers, who are always impatient, lament their parents' financial incapability and instability. He was the only one amongst them who understood the parents and believed that all fingers, although rooted in a particular hand, are not equal. The other siblings blame their parents at every opportunity they get for not being rich and financially committed like their mates. On several occasions, they had compared their father with the neighbor in the next house, Mr. Tadden, a business owner with his firm, and was assured to be living just as fine as he had a fleet of luxurious cars in his compound. It is wrong to play the compare and contrast game on Daddy. He's not lazy, and he's trying his best, was Toby's frequent defense line, but they often attacked his statement by uniformly echoing, his trying is never enough. The humiliation of his father from the children, Toby's siblings, and several other reasons, coupled together, made Toby engage in petty jobs that made him pay wages, and the majority of his earnings he spends on his siblings, which went on for years. Toby's love for tech and programming made him decide to learn the skill professionally, immediately after high school. He had gathered some funds to sign up. He was prepared. He saved up for 4 years from his street jobs and often kept the money in a secret hole known to him only. This weird method was applied after he was taught an unforgettable lesson. Do you care to know what happens before the whole saving procedure? Formerly, he used to keep his money carelessly. Maybe it was not careless, but keeping his money in a purse hanging around somewhere in his room was a bad idea in a house where his devouring siblings were living too. They often take his money, and no one ever takes responsibility for the theft. He decided to change his bank and started keeping his money in the ceiling. The outcome wasn't successful too, because this time, the money wasn't stolen, but eaten by rats. These previous experiences made him dig a secret hole, which turned out productive, as his hungry siblings never found out about the spot, and even the rats couldn't prevail. He overcame his adversaries. Toby later married Maria. They had 3 kids together and were all boys. He was living a mediocre life, but that's not what he envisioned. He wanted more from life as he didn't want to endure his father's humiliation. On a fateful day, he concluded to move to the city in search of greener pastures, having convinced his wife that for them to live the lives they dream about and to give their kids the best care, he had to go to the city to further his programming learning. The wife, naturally, disagreed, but since it was for a better life, she couldn't insist further. Toby promised to visit home at least once a month to see the wife and the kids, as they were still very young. The eldest was just 5 years old, the other 3, while the youngest was around a year senior. The city was in a different state entirely, but Toby kept to his words and visited just as they had agreed. He needed to raise some capital to build his own company when he was done learning. He had to work extra hours in the city. At some point, he became a freelancer for top-notch companies, earning well. He was able to raise something tangible. He developed and launched his first software. Things began to change positively, as he demanded the relocation of his wife and kids. After a few years, his company has kept a sound track and record. It topped as the best programming company in the city, attracting wealthy angel investors. This made Toby's company well known, with several branches across the country. In no time, Toby had become very wealthy and lived the life he had wished for with his wife. He overcame his greatest fear, as he gave his children all the care and attention he didn't enjoy as a kid. He sent them to the best school in the city, paid their allowances before due time, and practically did everything a father was supposed to do for his kids. When it was time for them to start working, he established them in their individual choices of a business. He eventually became a billionaire after his company expanded to the entire continent and broke out of it. He now has a company in 53 countries. Toby became a well-respected man in his country, and his biographies were taught in schools to motivate kids that there is no limit to what they can achieve, irrespective of where they are coming from, as Toby is a living testimony. Even though Toby is successful in his niche, he never forced his business on any kids. He didn't impose his choice on them, but instead respected their decisions and gave them his full support. After about 30 years of recognition, Toby's boys had grown up and had established themselves with financial and psychological support from their father. The eldest son was an auto dealer, the second son was into real estate, and the youngest ran a successful restaurant. Everything was smooth until the unexpected happened. Toby was diagnosed with cancer and discovered he had just a few months to live. He felt terrible for himself, but but worried more about his legacy when he was gone, his company. He has not had time to checkmate the boys as they grew up in wealth. Reminiscing on his memories as a lad, he concluded that his father's humiliation was purposefully because he was poor. The thought torments him by the day, and each time he thinks, a question pops up in his head. If his sons were born as poor, would they still regard and respect him, or humiliate him as his siblings did to his father? He decided to test the kids before he died. He didn't tell them about his newly discovered health situation, not even his wife. He decided to run a setback test on the boys to know if they would still love him regardless. He openly declared his company was going bankrupt due to some money he had borrowed to boost his company some years back, of which the interest had grown massively beyond his ability, so that he would be losing the company to debt. He explained to his sons that he had also mortgaged his house and was to lose his homes too. He told them he had to sell his cars to cover the remaining debt. Hence, he had no property or possessions left. He carried his board members along that all was a stunt, and he was doing it to get some fundamental rights. But they should cooperate with him and keep the truth away from the public. When it's time to unwrap the truth, he would do just that. It was challenging to convince the investors, as they complained that such a prank was deadly and would affect their heritage. But afterwards, they agreed to cooperate as long as he promised them that the stunt wouldn't last too long. His sons didn't believe in hearing it at press stations until they confronted their father and he confirmed it as accurate. They were disappointed their father didn't tell them about it, and they had to find out most embarrassingly. They left their father in anger. After a week, Toby went viral as people had different things to say about the shocking news. Some emphasized with him for his massive loss, while others abused him for taking such a stupid step, as they thought he was an intelligent businessman. He sooner appeared in his sons' respective companies, starting with the eldest, to know what they still felt about him, to see if they were worthy of managing his wealth when he eventually died. He appeared like a retard searching for a job in their distinct companies, as he claimed he was now homeless. They sent him away, as they claimed he didn't involve them when he got the exorbitant loan, and rarely included him in his business when it was ranking. Thus, he shouldn't bother them, as, unlike him, they are still respectable people. The youngest son, however, was disappointed that his father didn't include them earlier until he lost all, forgave him, and listened to him. He offered him a soothing job for an older man, and if he needed to learn a new skill, he would pay for the course and grant him the capital to start over once he was done learning. He will also provide him with a new house and car to drive around. He ordered that his staff serve him honorably daily and offer him whatever he asked for. He later took him home to freshen him up and change his clothes, as he looked so unkempt and rough. On the second day, Toby summoned his 3 sons for a family meeting. The eldest and second son refused to attend, as they were still cross at him. They claimed to be busy, but they gave a second thought to hearing the venue. The meeting was held in Toby's private guest house, his most luxurious house. The sons were surprised because that was one of the houses he claimed to have lost. Toby started by revealing his newly detected ailment. Then he told them he didn't lose any of his property, as he had only put them on a test to know whom amongst them genuinely cares about him and is capable of preserving his legacy when he's gone. Still, only their little brother had proven to be the qualified one by passing his little test. For that reason, even though he has forgiven the other 2, as they will remain his sons, 80% of his property shall be willed to their little brother, including his great company. In comparison, the brothers will share the remaining 20%. The brothers sobbed bitterly and asked for their father's forgiveness. After 2 weeks, Toby passed away, and his lawyer to his sons allocated his property as he demanded. The moral lesson of this story is that there's no limit to what you can attain and where you can reach, regardless of your past account or background. However, while money is good, we shouldn't love people just for their money, no matter who they are to us. A relationship is unhealthy if it's based just on money. Similarly, respect shouldn't be quantified by how much wealth someone amasses or possesses. Furthermore, it's not ideal for forsaking a friend or family during troubles or setbacks. No condition is permanent, they say, good or bad, because life is full of ups and downs. When a family or friend falls, it's our utmost responsibility to be the shoulder they can lean on by helping in whatever way we can. In some situations, money might not be the solution. They could all need words of encouragement or physical presence to get back on their feet. So when someone falls, don't make fun of their situation or detach. Instead, help them rise again. That's what a family or friend should be about. Conclusively, getting crossed at someone for not doing the needful at the right time is okay, like in the case of Toby. He didn't carry his family along on time. But then your anger shouldn't overshadow the bond and relationship you have built with someone over the years. Learn to forgive soon, just like the youngest child did. Don't hold up to someone's flaws for long, as no man is perfect. Be the reason why someone who is sad smiles again. Be the reason why someone who has fallen rises again. Be more of a strength than a weakness.